zither. It's a traditional Chinese instrument, and it's not supposed to sit up like this. It should have 2 stools, and I should sit and play. However, I wasn't able to bring the stools with me, and I just can't find a suitable seat as well. So today I'm going to try something I've never done before, something new. I'm going to stand and play to my best ability. And the music I'm going to play is called War Against Typhoon. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was gorgeous.
Thank you. Well, if I made any mistake, you wouldn't know, so. Right? Yeah.
I've always enjoyed your courage. About 4 years ago, I was asked to speak at a conference in China, the AYACC conference. It was a comics and animation conference. I'm an animator. And each of us was assigned a Chinese student who was volunteering to help us along and translate for us and be our guides. And one of the days of the conference, those of us who were not from China were given a beautiful opportunity to spend some time on a bus touring Guangzhou province and touring some of the really amazing sites. And my student translator decided on this long tour, there were lots of stretches between the sites, that he would just sit in the back with a friend and chat with his friend. And while we were looking at these beautiful things, including this beautiful waterfall, what's the name of the waterfall? Yeah.
It's the third largest waterfall in my province, which is called Guizhou province, and it's called Shu waterfall. And it seems like they take tours to this waterfall every year for the festival. So I was, it was on the bus, and I was gate crashing that party.
Yeah, she was gate crashing. She was
I was
not
gate
actually
crashing that
selected.
Party. And I used you. I used you as a shield. So oh, that's a good guy. I'm gonna go and
So anyway, so I'm sitting there watching this beautiful stuff, and this young lady comes up to me and she says, "Are you sitting by yourself?" And I was. And she asked if she could sit next to me and practice her English. I said, "Please sit, practice. Ask me some questions. Ask me anything you want." Here's her first question. Yeah, I had the same response. And we had that kind of a conversation for about 2.5 hours. And I asked this young lady, whom I was sure was a graduate student because of her beautiful British accented English, I said, "What college are you in?" And she said, "Well, I'm not in college yet. I'm schooled at home, but I hope to go to college someday." And that began the beginning of a very beautiful conversation that we've been having ever since. So we continued on our tour, and we saw some of these absolutely gorgeous places, and this young lady told me about the fact that she left school at 13. She wasn't really interested in learning the way the school was interested in teaching her, and she told me this. And I responded, and it's true. One never knows what great surprises the future holds. The fact is that we had a long conversation all the time, and I've met her parents, and her parents are lovely, wonderful people who decided that they would support her endeavors. They would support her interest in teaching herself on her own terms. And Shuangyi's dad agreed to put speakers in every nook and cranny of their apartment so she could listen to BBC online all day long and books. And Shuangyi taught herself. She taught herself English in about a year, taught herself all the other subjects that she would need to learn to get the equivalent of a high school education, and has been learning ever since. This is where she studies.
My parents were sitting on my shoulder watching over me. Just don't get distracted. But he was the source of distraction, actually. So.
One of the interesting things about China is, especially in this part of China, in south central China, in Guiyang, English books are not easily come by. And so Shuangyi was able to find books on Shakespeare. And what did you like about Shakespeare?
Can you say that again?
What did you like about Shakespeare?
Well, I think there are several reasons I like about Shakespeare. I enjoy the rhythm of poetry and how it can express things that, especially emotions that you cannot express by words. It's like a music that you just have to understand and interpret it in a different way to really experience how this specific person feels. And it's a way for me to understand human being, because I self-taught myself, and I don't really get to meet other people. And very curious about what people are like. I'm still confused about what people are like, especially because of Shakespeare, you know. So, but because of him, I am curious about the complexity. So I don't see human in a black and white way, especially some of his very famous plays. For example, Romeo and Juliet. I don't know if you guys have ever questioned this. Will they actually live ever happily after? Is it really a tragedy? Or is it a happy ending? I mean, they died when they're so much in love. So it's about me understanding life through a very small window, or maybe you could say a very large window, through Shakespeare. And his drama helped me to see the enlarged picture of how our human heart will be able to achieve, and what kind of things that seems to be really awkward or surreal can actually be so real that any one of us are capable of love, hate, and building amazing connections with people you barely know, strangers, and having compassion towards species that's not our own, people who commit their life to do some minute things and to make this world a much better place.
One of the things that Shuangyi told me was that had cell phones been around, Romeo and Juliet would have ended very differently.
Yeah.
On my second visit to China, Shuangyi asked me if I could bring her a Shakespeare dictionary. She asked if there was room in my bag, so I did get her a Shakespeare dictionary. I also got her Harold Bloom's wonderful book on the history of language and people, and he's at Yale, and I got him to sign the book to her. And little did I know that Shuangyi had spent the summer memorizing all of A Midsummer Night's Dream and possibly all of Romeo and Juliet, although you didn't quite test yourself on that. So I'm going to play you just a little bit over a minute of what Shuangyi can recite from front to end.
Demetrius loves your fair, oh happy fair. Your eyes are lodestars, and your tongue sweet air, more tunable than lark to shepherd's ear. When wheat is green, when froth and butter appear, sickness is catching. Oh, with favour so yours will I catch fair Hermia ere I go. My ear should catch your voice, my eye your eye, my tongue should catch your tongue's sweet melody, were the world mine and truth being baited, the rest I give to be to you translated. Oh, teach me how you look, and with what art you sway the motion of Dimitri's heart. I frown upon him, yet he loves me still. Oh, that your frown teach my smile such skill. I give him curses, and yet he gives me love. Oh, that my prayer such affection move. The more I hate, the more he follows me. The more I love, the more he hateth me. His folly, Helena, is no fault of mine, none but your beauty, with thy fault were mine. Take comfort, he no more shall see my face. Lysander and myself shall fly this place. Before the time I did Lysander see, seemed Athens as a paradise to me. Oh, that not graces of my love to dwell, that he hath turned a heaven unto a hell.
I was so skinny then.
Yes, yeah. So one of the things that has been sort of a metaphor for the difficulties of getting from here to there for Shuangyi has been long-distance bicycle riding. So you want to explain a little bit about what you do?
Okay, well, bike riding was my passion. Guizhou is a very beautiful place. We have spiky hills, and it's something that makes you feel like you belong here. Because nowadays people live in cities, and we're so cut off from nature and from ourselves as well. So biking makes me calm down and, what we say, enjoy the present. Just enjoy being alive and not worry about tomorrow's work and a paper coming up, whatever. But another thing I enjoy about biking is that the uphills and downhills represent life. The uphills is like when you're facing difficulties. I find sometimes like climbing uphills. This picture you're seeing. It's 21 miles uphill. It's one of the highest point you can reach in Guizhou province. So when I was biking uphill, sometimes it's so tiring I could just give up instantly. And then later I find if I pedal uphill just a couple minutes more and a couple minutes more, and you can see that the end is near, and you can stop and achieve a small victory. And the same with downhill. It's like the vicissitude of life, just going up and down, and you won't die because of difficulty. And I find courage in that. That's why today I want to take a risk and do something I'm really not sure of. I might just screw everything up, but...
every day is a risk.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've done is we've gone from sort of a mentor-mentee relationship to having a little bit more fun and involving a little bit more family. And Shuangyi asked me a couple of years ago if I would bring my son Alexander to China with me, and I did so. And I had expected that we would get possibly a couple of pen pals out of the deal. But instead, we found that Alexander and Shuangyi were like long-separated siblings, and they really got along very well together. And so Shuangyi, of course, did a lot of translating for me. Every time I went to China, there's Alexander in the back, waiting patiently. There's...
Sorry, Alex. I know you're not going to like this picture.
So anyway, we've done a lot of cool things. We've had some really interesting adventures, including sending Shuangyi dozens of books that got confiscated by Chinese postal authorities. And so I ended up bringing her books on discs and hard drives and other things. And we managed to get Shuangyi into Hong Kong to take the SAT about a year and a half ago. And even though she didn't have any transcripts, we found a Catholic school that agreed to give it to her, and she did really, really well. And this last May, we were in Hong Kong, met a friend of mine who suggested that she skip high school altogether and just apply to colleges. And he introduced us to a friend in Tibet who told us about St. John's College in Annapolis, Maryland, which uses the Great Books program that was developed by the University of Chicago. And it is a really near mirror for how Shuangyi taught herself. So as an experiment, Shuangyi applied. She wrote this incredible 6,000-word essay on how she learned to learn and her philosophy about learning and life. And a week after she sent in her application, she was told through a phone call to me that she was given a spot and almost a full scholarship. And she's a freshman now at St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we're very happy to have her here in the country. And it's a wonderful thing having her in the family. And to my wife, Patty, thank you so much for believing. It means the world to me.